everybody. Could we start with apologies for absence, please?
Chairman, I have apologies from Councillor Philip Cawthorne, Councillor Richard Lewis.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest in matters before us tonight? None. In which case, can we approve the minutes of the last Cabinet meeting, pages 1 to 10 of the agenda? Are they approved? Thank you. And agenda item 4 is to confirm that items marked Part 1 will be considered in public and items marked Part 2 will be in private. The public items are agenda reports numbers 5 to 10, and Part 2 reports are numbers 11 to 13. So on to the first report, agenda item 5. This is a review by the Social Services, Housing and Public Health Policy and Overview Committee on the impact of changes to housing benefits on residents and the Council. I will formally move the recommendations shown and invite Councillor Wayne Bridges to introduce this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you to Cabinet for allowing me to present tonight's report this evening. Over recent years, government legislation has brought about fundamental changes to housing benefits and the way others' benefits are structured. Whilst this is national in scope, local authorities have a key role to support residents during these changes. This review allowed us to take a detailed look at the changes required and understand how they are implemented within Hillingdon and the support being provided to residents. As you will see, our findings from this review has allowed the committee to satisfy itself that the Council is doing all that it can to ensure residents are supported and that our current processes and systems are fit for purpose. As many of the changes, such as the continued rollout of universal credit, are yet to be fully implemented, it is recommended that a further review be conducted in the near future to ensure Hillingdon continues to have the systems and support in place to put our residents first. In shorter term, it is recommended that appropriate communications continue with those residents affected so that they are aware and understand the changes and the support available to them. And I would like to finish by thanking the witnesses that contributed to our inquiry and made the review possible, and on behalf of the committee, kindly request that Cabinet endorse our findings.
Thank you, Councillor Bridges. Are there any comments? No. I'm particularly pleased to see that you will look at this again. This is a little bit of a moving feast. It's still being rolled out, but this is a very comprehensive report. There are always challenges to introducing change, and this set of changes is being handled by our officers very well. We do not set the rules, we do not set the limits, but we can ensure that they are delivered with the best advice, efficiency and fairness. So I'll be grateful, Councillor Bridges, if you'll take our thanks back to your committee for a very good report. And I think that the Cabinet will accept all recommendations. Is that agreed? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bridges. Agenda item 6 is the Hillingdon Local Safeguarding Children's Board Annual Report, 16 to 17. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Leader. Members will have sight of the report which is attached following the introductory report on page 35, and that is before Cabinet this evening on its way to consideration by full Council, as is the statutory requirement for all LSCB reports. Now, the independent chairman of the board sets out in the introduction to the report the progress which he feels the board has made over the last 12 months and sets out clearly a number of considerations which he feels the Council needs to bear in mind, and a lot of those really revolve around the financial pressure that many partner organisations continue to experience, and as much as anything, the implications that that has for the strength of the partnership. So we are aware, for example, that our local police are undergoing some reorganisation whereby the relationship which we've traditionally enjoyed with a Hillingdon Borough Commander is changing. We're also aware that our partners in the CCG are part of a wider financial arrangement that is experiencing some financial stress, and that's having an implication certainly in the feedback we're getting from GPs and others that are directly involved in the process of safeguarding. But given that there will be a much fuller opportunity for debate and discussion, should it be required at the Council meeting when this is considered, I'm not going to spend any more time going through it. I'll simply move the recommendation that we note this annual report, and it will in due course come to full Council for wider consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Simmons. Are there any comments? As Councillor Simmons says, this will be coming to Council. Okay, the recommendation agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 7. This is the Hillingdon Safeguarding Adults Board annual report, and in the absence of Councillor Cawthorne, would you move this, Councillor Simmons?
Well, thank you, Leader. I'm very happy to move the report and the recommendation on page 117. Not identical, but in parallel to the arrangements that we have for safeguarding children, there is an equivalent board which supervises the local arrangements for the safeguarding of vulnerable adults who are resident in the borough, which includes those vulnerable adults who may come through council social care system, but also others who may come to the attention of other agencies, including the police and the health service. Similarly, it goes through a statutory process of publication, and there is an opportunity for wider discussion and input into that. I'm aware, as in this case, that the Policy Overview Committee has had the opportunity to look at it, and with those remarks, I'll move that we note it as recommended.
Thank you. Once again, I think we can reserve any comment for Council. So is that recommendation agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. Agenda item 8, page 167, Planning Obligations, Quarterly Financial Monitoring Report. Councillor Burrows.
Thank you, Leader. This is our general quarterly monitoring report that we get before Cabinet. As you will see, we've increased our planning obligation monies that are coming in through the 278 and 106 agreements, which proves that we are still a borough that works very well with developers. They want to come into Hillingdon, but we also, as a borough, protect our residents and do get financial contributions to various aspects. I would ask, as usual, that my Cabinet colleagues look through their particular areas, and if there are any areas of expenditure that they feel has been stuck for a while or feel they need to just push on a little bit, then please do challenge that through myself and the relevant officers. I do meet the officers on a monthly basis to look at what's coming through and to look at what we can actually spend and allocate. So with that said, I will move the recommendation at the bottom of page 167 that we note the current financial information as per this report.
Thank you, Councillor Burrows. It is a sound financial position, as you pointed out. The interesting thing about this is if you follow the movement, you will see, for example, this quarter that we're just reviewing, income's 991,000, and yet we spent 9,000, which would seem like we're stacking it up. The previous quarter, December to March, the income was only 203,000, and we spent 3,156,000. So we are spending it, but we're spending it wisely. Recommendations agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Agenda item 9, page 203, approval to set a licence deficit budget for 17-18 for Oakwood School, formerly known as Abbotsfield School, and Bishop Whittington Ingram Church of England Primary School. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Leader. This is a relatively unusual report in that we haven't had a significant number of schools seeking the Council's agreement to a licence deficit. But we have two that have made such a request that we are asked to agree this evening. They are quite different situations. So starting off with Abbotsfield School, which is a large maintained secondary school, it is in the process of relaunching as a mixed co-educational school at a larger size to meet increasing demand for places within the borough, and under a new name as Oakwood School. And as part of that agenda, clearly they are seeking to incur significant costs, which in the case of the costs for things like new teachers joining the school to accommodate the extra children are not funded until the following year. So the way that the pupil count operates means that they're a year lagging behind. And what the report sets out is that as planned, the filling of those places will move the school towards a much more financially sustainable position. But clearly, in the short term, they will need additional help, and the report sets out the timescale roughly over which we think the deficit, which currently is quite large, can be managed. But this is a school that has limped along, I think it's fair to say, in the current circumstances for some time, And the rebuild, which is part financed by the local authority, will give them a real opportunity to get back on their feet again as part of our overall strategy for providing good quality school places for every child. The situation with Bishop Willington Ingram, which is primary school, is slightly different. They are experiencing some short-term stress on their budget, and having considered how they might manage that, they've made an application for a short-term situation where they're allowed to go into deficit with an indication that they would expect to return to a balanced position reasonably swiftly. Now, I say reasonably swiftly. I think it's always difficult to set precise dates for this, not least because we know with the numbers of families who move in and out of the borough that predicting exact numbers of children arriving at a school at a given date can be difficult. But we know that as the overall number of children in the borough continues to rise, albeit at a slower level than we've seen in the past, that the school places that have been provided and that continue to be available are filling up. So with those observations, I'd like to move that we agree those licence deficits as outlined in the recommendations 1 and 2 on page 204.
Is that agreed? Thank you. Agenda item 10, page 213, the Council Budget 17-18, Month 5, Revenue and Capital Budget Monitoring. Councillor Bianco.
Thank you, Leader. Well, as you rightly say, this is Month 5, which equates to August, and you will see amongst the headlines that the underspend has improved this last month to there's an improvement of about 368,000, so the underspend now currently stands at 743,000, which is, of course, a step in the right direction. There are 6 recommendations shown on the bottom of page 213 and the top of page 214, and there is a further recommendation shown on the addendum sheet, 7 in total. I know that you will speak to some of these in due course, Leader, but I think it's probably worth pointing out that, as is usually the case, the general fund balances are looking to increase, and now at the year end are heading towards 38.5 million, which is an improvement, and particularly gratifying is the state of our savings budget, if that's the right term, which started the year with us needing to save something in the order of 15.5 million, and we see at month 5 that roughly half of that is fully banked, and almost all of the rest is on track for delivery. There is a very small amount now where we are still working on it. So it's a really good place to be at this relatively early stage in the year to have most of the savings we need already banked. That's a very good news story. On the capital front, you'll see, as usual, there is some slippage, but as we know with these things, time will undoubtedly see quite a bit of this spent, and in due course, no doubt, some will roll over. The new recommendation 7 on the addendum sheet is in connection with the decisions that you've made, Leader, so I'm sure you'll talk about them in a minute, in terms of the emergency contract decisions to undertake works to a number of our properties, residential properties, in light of the need to improve fire safety and that sort of thing. At that point, I will move the recommendations and let you speak, no doubt, further.
Thank you, Councillor Bianco. As you say, a very sound position to be in at this time of the year, and a sound position we will be in at the year end as well. The Treasury Management update on page 252 details, as usual, our investments still only getting 0.44% on deposits and paying on average 3.37 on debt. There were no scheduled debt repayments or early debt repayment opportunities during August. Yields went down slightly during the month, therefore premiums are too high to make early repayments of debt feasible. The delegated authority to myself and the Chief Executive for consultancy and agency assignments over £50,000 are shown on pages 253 and 254. Recommendation 4, a little bit of an unusual one, in response to the introduction of the Markets in Financial Instrument Directive 2014-65 MIFID2, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with. The The authority has to elect for professional client status going forward. We need to do this. It's fairly well detailed in supporting information shown from paragraph 3, but it's designed to prevent small, less experienced bodies from accidentally investing in the wrong sort of products. That's not an issue for us at all, but we do have to do this as a technicality. There are protections available to retail clients. We're not subject to those protections anyway, so it would make little difference if we were a retail client. Recommendation 5 is approving acceptance of gift funding in relation to planning performance agreements in respect of Axis House, Bath Road, and Brunel University, Uxbridge. 6 is to approve a new winter tariff of £3.50 for all-day parking at Ruislip Lido car park for anybody who is not fortunate enough to be a resident of Hillingdon. Where if you are, it is absolutely free. The new recommendation 7 that you refer to, Councillor Bianco, refers to emergency contract decisions around fire doors and the like. This is, as I detailed at Council some months back following the Grenfell Tower tragedy, we are advancing our fire safety programme, and this was a necessity to move this forward and keep that momentum going. I know there are some authorities that are still talking about it even now, but some like us are getting on with it, and that's exactly what this is about. So, all in all, a very good position. You're absolutely right about the savings. To have that amount, in fact, we had it almost at similar sort of figures at month 3, so it's a very strong position for us to carry into the next financial year and indeed into the next administration. Are the recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. We now move